Welcome back to the channel. Today's conversation is truly special. We're joined by an artist who has redefined elegance and excellence on the global stage, known as a harpist to royalty, stars, and presidents. Jude Harpstar, from performing for some of the most powerful and influential audiences in the world to transforming the harp into a modern symbol of luxury and innovation. Her journey is nothing short of extraordinary. Today, we dive into the business of luxury performance, the mindset behind elite artistry, and what it really takes, to operate at the highest level in 2026. Let's get into it. How are you, Jude?
I am very well, thanks, and you. Thanks for having
I'm
me.
also, you're most welcome, and I'm happy to really have you on today. And to get the ball rolling, Jude, your title to hoppers to royalty, stars and presidents is extraordinary. What was the defining moment when you realized your artistry had reached a truly global elite level?
You know, the first time I performed overseas globally was actually when I was, I think, about 15.
Wow.
I had made this, my mom heard about this program that they had at the World Harp Congress. And that year, the World Harp Congress was taking place in Switzerland, in Geneva. And she just she just said to me, listen, let's make a recording. I'd only been playing harp for about 4 years. And then we send it through and we see if they accept you, and they only accept 30 students from age 12 to, I think, 29, around the world.
Wow.
And I thought, okay, well, let me try. And we knew nothing at that stage of doing recordings and like any of that. We were so new to it. My mom is a classical pianist. And so we went to this guy. Gosh, I don't even remember. It was so many years ago, but we went to this guy, and I literally fit my small harp into a closet, like a makeshift recording, literally in a closet. We couldn't even close the door properly. And I made this recording and we sent it through, and I was chosen. And that was my first taste of performing globally, but I wasn't secure within myself because I was still I was still a student. But I had to perform in front of a panel of 8 world-renowned harpists. Um, so that was I was still nervous then, but still in that time and in that moment, I thought, oh my gosh, like, I've made it. I was chosen to perform, only, one of 30 in the whole world. And at that time I thought, oh, I made it. But now, years later, and having performed all over the world, I think a really cool moment for me where I thought, wow, like I really now feel secure within myself, and I feel like, this is me and I'm being noticed and so on, is when I performed for the president of the DRC's daughter's wedding, um,
Wow.
at his residence on the banks of the Congo River. And I was playing during the vows, and they had a massive screen up, and they built this tiered stage, and I was sitting right at the top because I had performed with an orchestra and solo. And I was right at the top, and they were all the way on the other side of the massive runway by the banks of the river. And on this massive screen, they had me performing solo, and then they switched to the couple doing the vows, and then they switched to me on the big screen, and they switched to the couple. And it was just such a beautiful moment of them recognizing me, setting the mood for this royal couple. um, and just, yeah, me being beautifully dressed and feeling so secure in who I am and what I'm doing, and what I offer to them. So I think there's been many defining moments, but I think that
Yeah.
was really a cool moment.
Awesome. All right, there's a comment question here for you already. This is from Jitin Rishika. Hi, Jude. I admire people who play such intricate instruments. Well done to you. A harp. What inspired you? What are your magical moments playing a harp? Okay, I think you can just probably add in one or two here if you want to.
Thank you so much for the question. Um, what inspired me? So I would say my mom inspired me, first of all. I started with piano when I was 5,
Okay.
and I begged my mom to play the piano since I was about 3. And you know that they've proven that babies can hear inside the womb. And my mom was actually preparing for one of her music exams while I was in the womb. And so I think I heard the piano then, and then said I wanted to play piano. And after a few years of piano, um, my mom said, you know, why don't you pick another instrument so that you can get exposure? Because piano is very much a solo instrument, unless, you know,
Mm,
you play with orchestras. Well, now it's,
yeah.
you know, if you do jazz, it's with whatever. There's a lot of things, but she said, why don't you pick another instrument to get exposure in orchestras and, you know, just more exposure in music? And um, I went to see the Joburg Philharmonic when I was very small, and I remember the harp physically stood out to me, and also the sound. And I knew that when she showed me a list, there's a place called JCE. I don't think it's called JCE anymore, but it's part of Wits
Okay.
campus. So back in the day, I used to do Eisteddfods there. And my mom, after one of my performances at the Eisteddfod, brought out a list. We were sitting in the car in the parking lot, and she said, okay, I think it's time to pick another instrument. And these are the instruments that they offer, the teachers and so on. And I didn't even think twice. I just looked at that list and I said, harp, that's it. So that's what I decided on. And it worked out perfectly because I'm one of 4 kids and we
Okay.
had a combi. And so the harp fits into a combi. And
Okay.
yeah, and the rest was history with that. I think magical moments playing the harp very much, it depends on so many elements. It depends
Mm,
on the setting. It depends on the crowd very much, how they interact with you, if they show appreciation. It just, yeah, I think different settings bring out different emotions when I'm playing. Also, the type of music. I mean, if I'm doing jazz, I don't know. There's so many. Um, I think the harp is always magical to play. To be honest, it's always
awesome.
magical to play. That's why I play it. It's a healing instrument. The vibrations of the
Mm,
harp calm you. It's been scientifically proven to bring down your heart rate and to heal you.
wow.
And yes, and it's so much fun to play. You know, the harp is actually a percussive instrument. It's not a stringed instrument, even though it has strings.
Okay.
So it's just such a playful instrument. One of the things that, you know, people that uh what makes you recognize the sound of a harp is something called a glissando. And a glissando is when you take your finger and you pull it across all the strings very
Okay.
fast.
Okay.
What you would hear in the Disney movies, you know. And so that's one of the funnest things to do on the harp. And people find it thrilling. I've heard crowds saying that it literally gives them this bubbly feeling up their spine. And you know, it's such a, I just find it to be such an interactive and beautiful instrument. And it never gets boring to listen to. It never gets irritating to listen to, because it's, I liken it to the sound of water. It's just such a fluid and gentle sound on your ears. So yeah, I would say it's magical in all aspects except for your fingers when you play it, because it hurts.
Lovely. Performing for royalty and world leaders must come with immense pressure. How do you prepare mentally and emotionally for such high stakes environments?
So I would say most of my preparation happened in my youth. Um, for a couple of years now, I have been so comfortable with my instrument. I've become one with my instrument. So I always joke that I can play it in my sleep. I can play it with my eyes closed. I don't have to look at my instrument anymore. I can just feel it. It's in the muscle memory. So for me, the most stressful part is the traveling. So the flying,
Oh.
being on time, and
Mm,
in South Africa, people are getting better, but they used
mm,
to. It depends on who's there at the airport and the traveling, but they don't always know that the harp is an instrument. And so there have been times where it's been very difficult to get through security. It's been very it's been very stressful. And so I would say the traveling part is the most stressful, but the performance part, I don't have any nerves whatsoever. That's the exciting part for me. What do I get to wear? What do I get to play? Where am I going? What is it going to look like? So I think, yeah, the preparation happened in my youth, all the out tens of thousands of hours of practice behind doors, and having the best professors in the world. I've had Grammy nominated professors in America, Yolanda Condonassis. I've had Joan Holland. I've had Lynn Aspness. I've had
wow.
master classes with Isabelle Perrin, who is world renowned French harpist. um my piano teachers, Malcolm Ney, Pauline Nossel in South Africa, they've prepared me for, you know, any stressful situation, how to create the most beautiful sound, how to perform under pressure. I think, when you're still young and you're still, developing your technique and all that, then you're stressed when you perform because you think, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to, play this riff? Am I going to be able to
Mm,
technically do this? Am I going to, then you're still stressing. I remember when I was young, I did perform um at a very high level, and back then you're still not secure within yourself, and you're still trying to master your instrument. And I remember I used to get such sweaty palms, and it was so stressful for me playing the harp, because when your hands are sweaty, you slip off the strings, and it was hectic. And now, you know, I mean, you can never stop learning, and you can never stop
mm.
um, trying to master your instrument and master what you're doing. But now that I feel more secure, it's like, yeah, it's amazing. It's only the travel that's stressful.
Yeah, yeah, you were mentioning about the stress and the travel. Is it because maybe the harp is maybe underrated in the sense that that's why they forgot the harp being an instrument? Is that maybe that's why it happened?
Um, I don't know. I guess, um, I don't really know. I think, in South Africa, the harp isn't a common instrument. Look, in
Okay.
America,
Mhm.
you can study harp at over 100 universities as your main,
Wow.
they call it your major. So there, and in Asia and in Europe, the harp is very, very common. So it's not a problem there. I think it's in South Africa and in Africa. Um, yeah, that it's just not as common. Like, people would
Yeah.
know, okay,
Okay.
people know a piano, they know a guitar, they know
Mm, mm,
a saxophone, they know a violin, they know all the
mm,
very obvious instruments. Um, it's always so cool to me when people come up to me at gigs, and they say to me, "Oh my gosh, it's the first time I've ever seen a harp. I can't
Mm,
believe it," you know, or they ask me, "What is this instrument called?" Many times, you know, the waiters, or you know, I interact with the waiters, and they say, "What is this called? What is this called? How do you spell it?" How, you know, it's really cool. So even when I perform for very high-end clients, um, I get to educate the waiters and the people, you know,
mm,
behind the scenes, or the people, you know, that keep the whole event together. Um, yeah.
awesome.
So slowly but
Luxury,
surely you educate everyone on it.
of course. That's beautiful. Luxury performance is a niche space. How did you position yourself not just as a musician, but as a premium global brand?
I would say it's been very important to me to define myself with a logo. Um, a logo that looks premium, that stands for something that is very much me, um, that people can also relate to. I mean, my logo is a lotus, and the lotus grows out of the mud, out of the murky waters. So symbolizes something very beautiful that grows out of, you know, difficulty, or you know, muddy waters thing, you know, working through a lot of things in your life, and then blossoming regardless of what has happened. um I really love art deco, and so I asked my friend Othman Al-Kindi, who is an incredible graphic designer and artist. He designed this logo for me from scratch. um I love symmetry. I love, you know, I just wanted this logo to look premium. And so my brand, it's very important with brand colors. So what looks premium? What, you know, when you look at it, does it look expensive? Does it look elite? Does it look beautiful? Is it
Mm,
aesthetically pleasing? Is it, what does it stand for? You know, so I wanted, my favorite color is black, color or non-color. So and then gold, so I have that gold
mm,
lotus on the black. So even my business cards, they have gold foiling, so my lotus is in gold foiling, and on a matte, um on a matte, you know, backing, so that it really stands out. Then image wise, you know, having professional photos taken. What are you wearing? You know, how do you pose in the photos? What else? You know, the question again.
oh, sure. I was saying a luxury performance is a niche space. How did you position yourself not just as a musician, but as a premium global brand?
So it's very important also, for me to, you know, everything has to tie in. The way that you look, um, what you play, getting professional videographers to also take videos
Mm,
of you. Um, I think just making everything as high end as possible, and staying true to how I want to look and what I love, um, visually, and just making sure that it also correlates with what looks high end.
awesome. You've redefined the harp for modern audiences. What inspired you to break away from traditional perceptions and innovate your sound and presentation?
So I am trained classically. rigorously. I was in the conservatories in America. I won a full scholarship when I was 17 to go and study at the prestigious Interlaken Arts camp at first, which was an 8-week camp, and then at the academy as well. And then I went to Oberlin College, and I also went to California Institute of the Arts. And I've lost my train of thought. Sorry, I'm quite sleep deprived.
No worries.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sure, sure. I was saying you've redefined the harp for modern audiences. What inspired you to break away from traditional perceptions and innovate your sound and presentation?
So I did rigorous classical training, and then at some points I thought I was at Oberlin College, and at some point I thought I don't want to keep playing the same music that every other
Mm,
harpist plays. We
yeah.
each had our own practice room, which was amazing. But while I'm practicing the classical piece that I'm practicing, I can hear the other harpist practicing the same piece. And I just thought, I want something different. I've always loved
Mm,
being individual, being innovative, just being different to others. That's always been something within me that I've wanted to stand out. And so I asked my professor there, who is absolutely incredible. I said, can I do jazz? Do you teach jazz harp? And she said, no, she doesn't teach jazz. She only does classical. And I couldn't, I couldn't move out of the college
mm,
um, at first. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to take a break from classical harp. And I went in a totally different direction. And I started doing costume design. And because I love fashion as well, I have my aunt is a famous fashion designer in South Africa, Marianne Fazler. So I grew
okay.
up going to her fashion shows. And as a child, I walked for her fashion shows. And I would sit in her studios and make clothes for my Barbies and so on. And yeah, so I did costume design for a while, and I didn't even touch my harp. And at one point I thought, no, I can't. I have to do harp again. And at that time with the costume design, I continued with my piano as well. So I didn't stop with music. But anyway, I then met this professor in my African American music history class. And he was a saxophone player, and he actually performed with a harpist in California. And they did
Oh,
something called free improvisation. And he told me about this and then invited me to come and listen to some of the recordings. And when I listened to the recordings of him and this harpist with free improv, they just sit down and they start playing. And it's like they catch this stream of consciousness, and it just there's this synergy, and they just start playing together, and it's absolute magic, and it sounds like it's been composed beforehand and it's been prepared and everything, but it's not. And I just found this to be absolutely magical. And in that moment, I realized, oh my gosh, I need to study with this professor. And her name was Susan Allen, and she was the professor at California Institute of the Arts. And so I sent videos to her, and she waived my application. And I ended up going to California Institute of the Arts in my third year at Oberlin. I transferred, and it changed my life, and it changed my perspective on what is possible with the harp and what is possible uh, with different genres, and with just letting the music flow out of you instead of you reading other people's music and having
mm,
to interpret that, which is also beautiful, but really opening up to what is inside of your soul. And from there, I ended up, just becoming obsessed with improvisation. And at 2 o'clock in the morning in California, I would go to the university, and I would go look around and see who's there. And I would invite a didgeridoo player. I would invite a cello player, whoever was there, and we would go into the harp room and we would just improvise. And it was just so magical. And I brought that back to South Africa. And I remember the first or second year that I came back to South Africa, I was invited by Sipho Hotsticks Mabuse to perform with him at the Joy of Jazz. And he wanted me to perform. It was a tribute to another artist, Zim. I can never say his surname. Um, Ngakwana or something. Sorry, apologies. It's a hard one to say. But an incredible track by Zim. And as we were sitting in rehearsal, I decided I don't just want to play one song. I don't want to just walk up, play one song, and
Mm,
leave the stage. So I started improvising very quietly along with Sipho's other tracks. And but I was very nervous, I just thought, oh my gosh, I need to, I really respect him and I don't want to step on any toes, but I
mm,
also like this excitement in me just wants to see like how can I add to his other music and so on. And he kind of looked at me and then as I was playing, and then he looked at the sound guy and he said, please turn the harp up in my monitor. And from there, I mean, I ended up playing on so many shows with him and to all his music. And he really, gave me this platform to perform with him and to it opened my mind to the fact that I can improvise with any genre. I can add the harp to any genre. And so that's when I kind of that's when I took the turn and didn't just do classical music, but other genres as well. And another story also was that I was booked by one of my dearest agents, Jenny Valsecki, who works for About Entertainment. And back in the day, she used to book me for, I would play for a hotel or something like that. And I was still very much classical. And I would always bring my music stand. And then I would do, jazz standards and so on, but I would read off the music. And Jenny would always say to me, you really need to get rid of that stand and you really need to get rid of that music book and you just need to play. You need to learn how to play with tracks and you need to learn how to improvise. And I always thought, that is so insulting. I'm a classical musician. Like, I would never. And how could you tell me that it's better to play without the music and better to play, just improvise and do pop music and so on? And I used to fight it. And eventually, when I did it, it just expanded my horizons
mm,
to an insane amount, And I worked on that and I kept improvising and doing other genres. And it just, then I started getting booked with all different types of musicians. I was booked with Questa, the rapper, booked with Zoe Modicha. I played for a Sufi gathering, and
oh,
I think it was Sibongile Kumalu was there. And, in a moment where she performed, I added the harp to that, and I got to perform with her in the moment. And with DJs and with singers and with, it just made everything so much easier. And because of that, there's almost no preparation anymore. So there's no more stress. I can just, if someone calls me now and says, hi, you're going to perform with Mikasa in 2 hours. Sorry, there's no time for rehearsal. I can go, and because my ear is so amazingly trained to pick up on the key of the
mm,
music, the vibe of the music, all of it, all the elements of the music, I can immediately join in as if the harp has been added to it. And so I've been on tour with Msaki and played with her because of my improv skills. It's just, yeah, it's been amazing. So that's kind of what I made the shift. And if people need me for classical stuff, I can play with orchestras. I can play with quartets. I can, whatever genre they need, I can do it because I've got that very, very strong base of classical music.
awesome. What are
I
some of
hope
the
that
unseen
answered it.
business? Yeah, yeah, yeah. What are some of the unseen business strategies behind securing high-profile international bookings in 2026?
Unseen strategies. I think it's very important to uh, unseen strategies.
Yeah, unseen business strategies. Yeah.
I think, you know, you need to be very professional in terms of when you
Mm,
respond to inquiries,
mm,
how you respond to them, the types of questions you ask. You know, there are many questions to ask. Um, what is the dress code? What what time do you need me to be there? Are there rehearsals? What type of, music do you want? Do you want the music to be acoustic? Do you want it to be with track? Um, will there be a sound company or must I provide my own sound?
mm,
Uh, sponsoring, you know, having so I've started arriving much earlier for gigs. I arrive at least an hour to 2 hours early, but
wow.
I arrive much earlier now, and I have a videographer with my friend Maremo, who is an insane violinist. You should also interview him. He's amazing. So we have a videographer that we use, and before the event starts, we take professional videos. That's a big thing. Another huge thing is sponsoring. I think I said it already, but sponsoring those videos that you feel are going to do really well. That brings in so many clients, because if you already have that beautiful setting, you have a professional video, you look great. Very important. You have to look the part. You have to put in the effort to look amazing for events. It's very much an aesthetic thing. Um, Making sure that your sound is amazing. So my partner is um, also my business partner, and he is my sound engineer if they aren't sound guys. Um, Having a very particular sound, knowing what you're going to sound like, arriving early so that you can see what the venue looks like, and walking around, having someone walk around and say, okay, the volume needs to be like that, or you have to have enough reverb, like making sure everything is so particular and as perfect. I mean, what is perfect? It's everyone's like
Mm.
perspective,
It's
but
subject.
what
Yeah.
is like what to you is of the highest standard that you can offer.
Mm,
um so there's so many unseen, even just where are you positioned, at the event, to be seen properly. What does it look like around you? Are your cables neat? What is it going to look like if the camera comes onto you? um Being, having energy. You can't look tired when you're performing.
mm,
All eyes are on you all the time, and you can't I'm not saying you can't relax when you perform, because I do. When I perform, I go into a type of trance.
mm,
But you can be in that trance, you can be into the music, but also be aware that people are looking at you. So I make sure that when I'm performing, I also make eye contact with people when I perform, so that they know I'm performing for them. Even if I do background, it's like, hi, I know you're there, and I'm performing for you, and I want to make this beautiful for you. And yeah, what else? Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot that goes into it. I don't know if there's
of course.
anyone that has more questions about it. I'll Yeah.
I guess in a nutshell, what you're trying to say is that it just comes down to meticulous preparation.
Yes, and making sure that you're easy to work with. I mean, have
Mm,
boundaries, but be easy to work with,
Of course, yeah.
have, you know, be friendly to be people, be
Yeah.
flexible. If something
Mm,
runs a little bit late, be flexible. Don't get irritated, or, try and accommodate. Also, uh, making sure that you build really good connections with clients.
mm,
And yeah, there's actually so much that goes into it, but I think,
yeah.
you know, being authentic, being honest, being on
Of course.
time, um, yeah, just making sure that you perform at your highest ability.
Of course. Can you share a behind the scenes story from performing at an exclusive or high level event that truly stayed with you?
I would say, oh, there's been so many, but the one that comes to mind was
Yeah.
actually the wedding in the DRC for the president's daughter.
Okay.
I went with I was booked and went with a company called Oriental Fire. They are amazing. They're run by Tina Kapp, and they do
Okay.
all sorts of dancing. They do ballet, they do Bollywood, they do all
Wow.
different types of dancing, belly dancing, everything, fire dancing. And can my baby come sit with me? She's very upset.
Sure, sure. So no problem.
Sorry.
No problem.
Sorry, she's knocking on the door and trying to get to me.
Oh,
Sorry.
no problem.
This
No
is my
problem. No problem.
this is
No
my this
problem.
is my daughter
Oh, hello.
who traveled with say hi,
Okay.
who traveled to the DRC with us.
Wow.
So anyway, so we went, and she was the first child and baby to ever be on the president's property,
Wow.
which is
That
really
must be
crazy.
awesome.
So so the main thing that I remember is that we had about 5 security checkpoints
Impressive.
going into to get to the ceremony area, and we weren't allowed to have phones. And I think the wedding ran about 6 hours late,
Wow.
and it was crazy, and the sun was so hot, and we sat there and we couldn't I just wanted something to drink, but we couldn't move. And I remember I gestured to get something to drink, and the one girl said to me, and most of them speak French, and I did
Oh.
some French at school, but it was very broken. So, and the one girl said to me, no, 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 like I wasn't allowed to gesture because of security reasons. You can't make any movements or anything. And it was so intense because we were sitting there and for hours and hours, and it was hot and everything. But once it finally started, it was like a dream. I mean, the outfits of the the diplomats and the ministers and the president and the wedding, and it was just exquisite. And afterwards, it was absolutely amazing because we got to go and eat some of the canapes, and it was just, French champagne everywhere you looked, and caviar, and it was magical. And there were the decorations with cherry blossom trees, and it was overlooking, the Congo River. And yeah, so there's always two sides to,
Mm,
events where people see the glamorous side, but they don't
mm,
see the side where
yeah.
you're almost dying.
Mm,
And then when the time comes, and it's this high level performance,
mm,
um it's so wonderful. It's like, yeah, two extremes.
yeah. All right. The one in the comments again has said cute baby.
Ah, thank you.
Awesome. All right. In a fast evolving global music industry, how do you maintain exclusivity while still expanding your reach and audience?
Hmm. I think the most important thing for me is to stay true to
Mm,
my aesthetic and what I think is unique. You know, I think just I think just being myself helps me do that in the way that
mm,
I interact with my clients, in the way that I play. I've some people, a lot of my fans on TikTok say that I'm the South African Andreas Vollenweider. I remind them
wow.
of that because I I love the I really a lot of the times highlight the percussive and rhythmic elements of the harp in how I play. And I think that reminds them of Andreas because he actually built something. I think he actually built and engineered the first electric harp ever. And he built this thing onto his harp that works like a piano that dampens the keys, when you press the pedals. And
Mm,
so he built that into his harp. And so I think he operated with his knee and it stops the strings as he's playing, which creates that percussive element. And so I do that with my hands or with my fingers. So I pluck the string or the strings, and then I'll stop it with my fingers or with my hands to create a percussive feeling. And so I think I've made myself niche in the way that
mm,
I love performing different genres.
mm.
Um, I said to my friend Maremo, we just played for a beautiful wedding in Limpopo, and
Okay.
there's a track by a famous um, musician from Limpopo, and it's a very upbeat, happy track. And I said to my friend, let's do that song. It's so different. People aren't going to expect it. Nobody's ever done this on the harp. I don't think they've ever done it on the violin. And we decided to do it, and it actually went viral on TikTok, and it's got over 1 million views. I think it got over 1 million
Wow.
views in 2 days or something.
Impressive.
Um, yeah, so I think, you know, the niche thing comes with many elements, the way you dress, the type of music you do. I'm just excited to explore, and I'm always up for an adventure. I've performed for a hair competition where it was basically like a play, and I was Mother Nature, and so I had this headpiece on my head, um like a tree. They made this tree out of metal and then wound hair around it, and I think it was about 12 to 15 kilograms. And I performed in that. I walked around with that thing on my head, on stage, and I've also performed 8 meters above the crowd on a swing, with my harp at, where was it, in Pretoria at an arena. I'm trying to remember what the name is, but either way, I've
Yeah.
also performed for Samsung, in a harness. I've flown with the harp as well, so I'm always open for challenges. I think that's what also makes me niche, is that I just love a challenge and I love doing strange things with the harp. So people
Awesome.
love coming up with ideas, to put me in different settings to play the harp.
What role does personal branding, image, and storytelling play in the success of a luxury performance artist like yourself?
What role does it play?
Yeah, what role does personal branding, image, and storytelling play in the success of a luxury performance artist like yourself?
I think it plays a huge role. I mean, people are aesthetic creatures, so
Mm,
it's it's really important, I think, across the board. Like, what your website looks like, what your logo looks like, the way that you are in person. um it plays a huge role. I think the colors that you choose for your branding, if you choose, it's psychological. So for example, the color red and yellow, they signify things that are cheap, So what colors do you choose? And I chose gold, which I think is very luxurious, black, which is very luxurious. Um, and it also shows in the way that I dress. So I love dressing in black. Also, the materials that you use, the wording that you use. It's a whole. I mean, it's a process. I think I've evolved as time has gone by. It accumulates the experiences that you have. You see, oh, I really like that. I'm going to add that element in, or okay, I think it's time to start customizing my outfits. Or one thing that also that I've made niche for myself is that I customize my harps. So I use vinyl, I use crystals, because you can order. Um, there's a catalog of harps from different, the different brands. So you've got Salvi, which is my grand orchestral harp, is a Salvi from Italy. And it's a Rainbow Echo is the type of harp. It's the electroacoustic. And that harp has a certain look, and all of them have the same look. They've got the same finish and everything. And so for me, because I want to be different, I customize my harp. So I've now changed my harp into a leopard print, and
Okay.
people love it. And I actually tagged Salvi in Italy in a photo that I took of it, and they reposted it. So obviously they
Hmm.
like it as well. Um,
Oh,
yeah, I think now I'm starting to refine my brand. I guess for now, I really want to bring out the African flair. So the leopard print harp, and um, I'm going to have custom outfits made that bring that out. And yeah, it's a fun journey, um, but always keeping in mind to make it luxurious, to make it refined, whatever you do across the board.
fascinating. You've performed across continents. What has been your experience connecting with audiences in places like South Africa and the broader Southern Hemisphere?
I would say South Africa is my favorite place so far because of its people. I
Mm.
absolutely love performing in South Africa because when you perform for South Africans, it's true that we are the friendliest country. They just music is in their bones, and they just appreciate music. While you're performing, they will come and dance while you're playing. They will. Can I quickly give her to my husband?
Sure, 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 no
Thank you.
problem.
Liffy. Okay, how am I going to do this? Ah!
Uh, uh,
So
uh, uh, okay, okay, no problem. That's okay, I'm
I
cool.
don't know. Um, I'm just quickly going to call him.
Sure,
Liffy.
sure, sure, sure.
Sorry, can I quickly go call him?
Yeah, 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 sure, sure. So no problem.
Okay, thank you. Come, baby, come. My papa. Squeeze. It's because they. Okay. Hold it down. Okay. What's up the floor? Apologies.
No worries, no worries. That's part of the job of part of motherly duties, part of motherly duties.
Yep. So yeah, so my experience has been amazing. Because as I said, they dance with the
Hmm.
music, they
Cool.
cheer you on. I think that's one of also the main reasons that I've switched over to improvising and doing other genres, because classical music, I love classical music, but it just felt too stiff for me, you
Hmm.
know? I wanted more. I wanted more interaction, not just, all the stress on the performer while they're performing and it's silence. And then at the end, you get a clap or maybe at most a little bit of a cheer and a standing ovation, but not. I love the active interaction, let's say, of jazz, when you do a solo and there's active interaction, or pop music. One of my favorite performances was with Msaki at the Kirstenbosch Gardens, Botanical Gardens, and it was a sold out show, and it was just an ocean of people. And as we walked on stage before the performance, the cheering was deafening, and it just flowed through your body and gave you so much energy, and it was just magical. um yeah.
All right. Lastly, for aspiring musicians watching this, what mindset shift is required to move from being a performer to becoming a world-class in-demand artist?
Mindset. Okay. Well, you have to you have to take your art very, very seriously, but also not. You have to uh make sure that you're on time. Do everything to your highest ability. So if you can, you know invest in the best sound, do it. If you can, just try and invest in the best things for yourself. Outfits, sound, the way that you um, show up to events, be on time, um, be way ahead of time. Make sure that, the way that people receive you, uh, in terms of when you perform, like, don't, if you're providing background music, don't
Mhm.
wait too long between tracks so there's an awkward silence. Everything has to be beautifully engineered. Um, what else? There's maybe repeat the question again.
Sure,
Advice
no problem.
to.
I know for aspiring musicians watching this, what mindset shift is required to move from being a performer to becoming a world-class in-demand artist?
Oh, also very important is to find what your strengths are and play on that. What makes you
Mm.
you?
Mm.
Don't try and copy.
Yeah.
Look at what other artists are doing. I'm not saying, completely just like put on the blinders,
Mm.
but
Yeah.
get inspiration, but then look at
Mm.
how you can, maximize on who you are. Because, if someone asks me if I'm not available for a gig, I honestly can't. If they say, "Oh, but who else can you recommend?" I can't recommend. I don't have someone that I can recommend that does what I do with my instrument. There is no one else. So
Mm.
then I know that I'm on the right path. I can recommend artists with other instruments that do what I do and
Mm.
on the level that I do it, but not the harp. I definitely, in other countries, yes, there are other harpists that kind of do what I do. Um, Definitely on the level that I do it, but maybe not all the different genres and all that. But yeah, I think really if you want to stand out, then maximize on that and do it to your highest potential.
Awesome. All I gotta say, Jude, is thanks so much for your time, and I hope to once again catch up with you in the future.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, and apologies for the interruptions and the brain farts. I
No,
am
no worries, no worries, no
between
worries.
all the gigs and the toddler, it does,
Of course.
yeah.
No,
But
I
anyway, thank
appreciate
you
you.
so much.
Yeah, I mean, you're most welcome.